today I'm absolutely delighted to have Chris Battye from Competitive Edge, and he's going to tell us about what he does.
Delighted to be in issue. Thanks ever so much for having me.
Excellent. Chris, so what do you do at the moment?
So Competitive Edge Training and Consultancy, we are a training and consultancy firm. We provide training and consultancy services to organisations that are looking to improve the performance of their people. It's people that make the difference. We believe people are the big difference, and our little motto is we passionately believe that your people are your competitive edge. So if you train, you invest in your people, you train them up, they'll be more productive, their performance improves, and of course in a business context it will drive more profit. So that's us, that's what we do.
That's absolutely amazing. So we've been working together for probably about 3 or 4 years now, haven't we? When did you actually start Competitive Edge?
So technically we started in September of 2019. You are the only accountant we've ever had in this year. You gave us some great advice right at the start. And as you well know, we've had a great 3.5 years, but there's been some bumps along the way, as you can imagine. And, we started 5 months before COVID.
Yeah. I remember our first meeting, and then we went and got lunch at the Abington next door. And
you paid for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And it was a really interesting lunch, but one thing that really I've never forgotten about that lunch afterwards, because I said to you guys, well, what are you going to do differently? How are you different from any other trainer? And then I think it was Ian, actually, your business partner, Ian, and he said, so most people, most trainers tell you what to do, and most people walk away from training and they only absorb 5% of it. And then Ian was like, we spend 75% of the time explaining to people why something is needed. And then when we give them the 25% of the training, the practical training, they absorb all of it.
Whether those percentages are right or not, I don't know. Obviously Ian had a good lunch then when he was talking about it. But in essence, what Ian was saying there is absolutely right. I mean, the difference I think that we would make would be we would prepare people for a learning journey far better than an average training company. And training is quite often something that just gets done. It just gets put in place, and the delegate isn't always thought about, and how people learn isn't always thought about. And we, from a technical perspective of training and development, yes, we do training, but we try and create a learning environment and give opportunities to people to learn. And sometimes that can be really challenging, and it takes people out of their comfort zone. But we often learn far more through stretch and often through failure. Psychologically, I think we learn more through failure than we do through successes, or the degree of change is greater through failure, so long as it's managed correctly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I think in that as well, you just touched upon some of the challenges you've had, but what would be really good is to understand how you even got to the point you started up your own business. So what does your career look like?
Well, I left school in 1996 and I went off to Loughborough University, and I was studying, I think it was an engineering degree, and that didn't work too well, if I'm honest. The appeal of doing sports and stuff like that at Loughborough was just fabulous, and I was far more involved in that kind of stuff and the extracurricular activities at university than I was doing 35 hours of lectures a week.
That's ironic. Ariel's husband, Chris, Ariel's behind the camera, so he did engineering at Loughborough.
Well, he was better at it than I was, clearly, yeah. Loughborough's a brilliant university, and it's a great engineering university. I probably, thinking about it, I probably got a little bit of duff advice from my school. Not that they were a bad school by any stretch. I really enjoyed my time, but it was your classic, oh, you've done maths, physics and design technology at A level, but engineering would work for you. And of course that was never going to be the case. But in that sort of GCSE A level period, my dad, who is an instrumental part of my life, really. I love my dad. He's a great guy. He set up his own company, which was training and development. Okay. And so from a very, very young age, I was already learning stuff around, leadership development and personal development and professional development and stuff like that. So before I even went off to university, I'd already started to do these kind of courses. I'd listened to my dad talking about these sorts of courses, and one of the areas of success for him was around behavior profiling and creating behavior profiling tools. And I remember, back in the old days when things weren't automated as well, I would literally put numbers into a spreadsheet, which would create a report, a personality profile report, and I'd go and take those along to some of the business meetings that he would be at. So yeah, it was really exciting, and I learned so much. It didn't work out in engineering at university. I changed courses, and actually at the back end, I stayed on and did a part-time master's, but did some work for my dad around some IT programming. And I thought that would be it. I'd do this IT programming, and then I'd go and get a proper job and whatever. And of course, fell into the family business. And I was there for until we sold it in 2011, and some bits and pieces that happened along the way.
Did your father retire at that point?
It kind of, in that sense, that he became unwell, and it was just right that I took over the running of the business. And I learned so much and made so many failures, and it was just a brilliant opportunity to learn. When you look back, you think some of those valuable lessons that you've learned.
What was that business called?
The company was called Strategia Performance Management. So yeah,
was it just you and your father?
There's a couple of, so we had some associates that worked in there as well, and some really good partners and stuff. In one sense, it was really, it was a great business, and we had some great customers, and there was just some events along the way that just hit us. I mean, I remember when the Twin Towers got hit. That was a monumental moment, because things happened around the world, global, and investment in training and development went down. The 2008 banking crisis, that was a pretty manic moment for us as well. But we worked with some brilliant brands during that phase as well. I've worked with some brilliant brands in the last 3.5 years, but in that phase, I worked with some brilliant brands as well. So I'm sure I've worked with some brilliant bands, but some brands as well. So yeah, it was. I've always, for the last sort of 23 years, worked in learning and development, really. So yeah, I mean, it's massive. It's literally 23 years in learning and development and people performance. It's fabulous. I love it.
Essentially, like the first job you had, you ended up being the managing director of, from the sounds of.
So not to begin with, I wasn't. No, my dad was the managing director for a long period of time, and that first role for me was actually just doing software design. I mean, literally, that's what I thought I was going to do, and I would do that design work, and then I'd go and get another job. But the more and more I did the design work for the software, the more and more I was understanding, from a technical perspective, what this behavior profiling system did. And with my knowledge from my upbringing, the personal development side of stuff, I just got sort of so
a Visual Basic, I'm just trying to remember, that's something to do with Excel, isn't it? Like, is that where you created macros and stuff in Excel?
So we're going back into the 90s, aren't we now? So VBA would have been associated with things like Excel and Word documents and stuff like that. Yeah. So all of it integrated really well, but there was actually a software package that you could do software development on called Visual Basic. Yeah.
So, and how did a training company use the programming that you did?
So that was the key part, really, which was I was doing the software design for the behavior profiling system that my dad had invented. So like personality profiling,
Myers-Briggs and
stuff like that. DISC, Myers-Briggs, Discovery Insights, those sorts of things. Belbin, they're all personality or behavior profiling tools. So we were designing one just like that. We would say it was more cutting edge at the time because it was based on neuroscience. Listen, that was light years ahead.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so you start off programming there, and then then you ended up running the company, and then eventually you sold it.
Yes, so I sold that in 2011 to a firm in Birmingham, and worked there till 2019, and did lots and lots of different projects. In one sense, I enjoyed my time there, and in another sense, it was horrific. But you take each day as it comes, and you build your resilience, you learn, you grow, you develop, you keep challenging yourselves. But it got to the point, I think, and rightly so for me, and probably rightly so for them, that I needed to leave, and I'd wanted to leave actually since probably about 2016 for a number of reasons. but it just didn't feel right at the time and stuff. So I kept giving it another year, and sadly, false promise after false promise, and I thought enough is enough. I'm making people money here. I could go and do it myself, actually.
So that takes you to 2019, really. So you probably stayed about 3 years more than you wanted to, and then, but in those 3 years, you left, and then essentially you started your own business.
Yeah. So I met Ian around about 2017, that sort of time frame, when we were working on a project together, and just from a pure sort of L&D perspective, Ian and I very quickly realised we were on the same page. And Ian had a vastly different background and experience to me. And I think those complement each other. I didn't know him. I'd never met him before. I remember meeting him at a Holiday Inn at Rugby, which was quite bizarre, really, because Ian is the most punctual of the two of us, and he was late to that meeting. And I always remind him of that. The first time I ever met him, he was late. But yeah, we quickly realised we were on the same page, and the program that we put in place there was brilliant. It was a really, really successful program, and I think,
did you build that program from scratch?
Pretty much. I mean,
just working together with Ian.
I mean, some of the stuff that I wouldn't say everything was from scratch. Ian would have bought some stuff from his background. I would have bought some stuff from my background, but we built a hugely successful program there, and I think it got to the stage where we could restart that program and put another set of cohorts through, but there was pressures.
Was that program to do with sales training?
Yeah, mostly commercial training. So no, actually, that's not true. Leadership, mostly for sales leaders, but leadership training and some commercial training for salespeople and for branch managers and people that worked in some of the branches of the company Ian was at. We must have had 200 odd people that we put through some sort of a program or learning initiative. Yeah.
And have you got like the feedback on it, how it changed them and the impact you had?
Absolutely. I think the sales directors at the time, because there were multiple different sales directors, they made reference to the program and how it improved gross margin and how it increased sales volume and how customer attrition was down and customer growth was up and stuff. So the key metrics in a sales world, it was having a huge impact for. And, Ian's time there would have been seen as a huge success, 100%. And, Ian, rightly so, would say that I contributed to that. Well, he might not say that, actually. He might say it was all about him, but, that's for me and Ian to debate. But
you guys are quite competitive, but yeah.
Not at all. I mean, I don't know where the name came from. Yeah, I mean, we loved working together. I mean, it was fabulous, and those two different experiences and backgrounds is what made the program, and really, really helpful.
Okay, amazing. And then did you go off and do your own things and then come back together later? Really,
I knew that I wanted to go. I knew that I wanted to leave. I knew that I needed to get away, and I would have happily have gone and done a lot of freelance stuff. It was, for all the right reasons. I couldn't really tell anybody because it was important not to. But Ian had found out and had asked me something, and I did say to him, well, look, I am going to go because I'm not going to lie to someone. And Ian was in a position that he wanted to go as well. So there wasn't a plan or anything like that we would work together for 2 years and then we'd go and set up our own company. That is, complete fabrication. And I know that there's some people that have said, oh, you two were probably plotting and scheming. Not at all. Not at all. I mean, we'd worked together on a project, but we hadn't worked together in the same company. And actually, when you think about it, it's a big risk because we trusted each other, but not to the degree that we trust each other now. And we'd only known each other for, best part of 3 years when we set up that company. And I would say now he's one of my best mates. I mean, I love the guy. We might be competitive, but I love the guy immensely. And, the thing about Ian, one of Ian's strongest traits, in my opinion, is his loyalty. And I know that man has got my back and he knows I've got his. And I think that's what makes a huge partnership there, which is the degree to which the encouragement and stuff behind the scenes is enormous and supportive, but
yeah. So I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of faith in each other's character at that point. What did you share as a vision that made you want to work together?
Yeah, we got into a room at Sedgebrook Hall, which we do a lot of our training at on a Saturday. I mean, we arrived at like 9 o'clock or something, and we had flip chart pages up on the wall, which is what could our business be. I'd already left at that time. Actually, I'd already gone, and we've still got the video now. We recorded a video right at the end when we went around all of these different flip chart sheets and said, what is this? What would our values be, or what could our values be? What's important to you, Ian? What's important to Chris? What do we want it to be? What might a vision look like? And 8 hours later, we left shaking hands, going, yeah, we're going to go into business together.
So how many values did you come up with?
Do you know what we've been reviewing this again and again and again, Nishi, and you know how you can go into an organization, a lot of the blue chips do it, and they put those values up on the wall. Yeah. Ian and I, we're still reviewing that right now, because we think to ourselves, we could have some values, which is really important, by the way. But at the same time, what are those values real? Are they honest? And we recently asked for a few of our customers, our delegates actually on the courses, to describe their experience with competitive edge in 3 words. And that was really powerful, because the words that they used to describe their experience with competitive edge were enjoyable, enlightening, educational, challenging. Challenging came up a lot, helpful, fun, enjoyable, all these different words.
So that sounds like a really good exercise, talking to your customers and getting the words that associate about your business. I think we should really do that as well, actually. It would be a bit of an eye-opener. It
tells you a lot, actually, about what your real values might be. I mean, Ian and I have got an opinion, but it will tell you what people value you for.
So I guess as an average, people are saying you're definitely fun and engaging. So that's important, because actually you're not going to take anything on board with training if it's not.
No. I wouldn't say it's always fun. Oh, right. Some people will find it really challenging, but as we get to know them better and they get to know us better, we make it more fun. Yeah.
I guess if it's challenging, you're forcing people to grow.
Yep.
And what was the other common theme that came up, like when people are describing your firm?
Enlightening was always a positive word that came out.
What does that mean? You're giving them something original, I guess.
Something food for thought. I mean, that's part of the biggest point of having a learning environment, is to get people to think differently. If you don't think differently, you don't change your behaviour. And competitive edge is actually about behaviour change, helping people change behaviour. And habit, it is all about behaviour, isn't it? And that is, what we're trying to do is say to them, suspend autopilot. Don't let autopilot run your day. Think differently, and actually go ahead and behave differently, and go and act differently. And if you act differently, you'll get different results. So, that is the enlightenment or the educational part that people often talk about. They're like, wow, I didn't realise that.
I guess people sort of misattribute it to Einstein, don't they? But they're like, Einstein's definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. But I don't think it was Einstein that said that, was it?
I've heard that rumor. Yeah, I'm happy with Einstein for today, but yeah, I think it might have been someone different.
He's achieved enough stuff that he can claim one that he might not. But
you're absolutely right. Insanity is doing the same thing again and again, and expecting something to be different, expecting a different result. It's not going to happen.
So you've had an amazing, like, compared to all of our clients, like you're at the top end in terms of what you've achieved in such a short period of time. I mean, obviously I can't get the exact figures out because it's confidential, but like you've gone, say, 3.5 years essentially. Yeah. And we kind of touched on it earlier, but you started your own business, and then we had COVID. And how did you feel then?
We had started, so yeah, we started our business in September. We didn't have any customers really. I think we were very, very fortunate to get a couple fairly early on, and Ian and I were still getting to know each other properly in a work context as well. So we were still, we hadn't worked in a business together properly there. So we're still working our way through that. That added complexity. We didn't fully trust each other like we do now. And we were sat at Sedgebrook Hall, and it was all coming up on the news, in China and stuff like that. And, start working from home. And I think that was February, wasn't it? Late February, early March. If you can work from home, work from home. And it was either the day that Boris announced it or, something like that. But Ian and I were I was sat in, the spare downstairs room in my house, and Ian sat in his spare bedroom at home, and we're looking at each other through Microsoft Teams. And I don't know whether we were laughing or crying, but it's like, what the flipping heck are we going to do? Because we're a face-to-face training firm, a face-to-face training company, and we've got hardly any customers, and we can't get in a room. And when is this going to go on? And I remember Ian saying to me, Ian will, sometimes take a pessimistic view. And he said to me, Chris, this could be 18 months. And I'm going, oh, don't worry about it, Ian. It'll be gone in a couple of days.
Pretty accurate, wasn't he?
He was bang on. But I mean, we both had, in fairness, we've both done that research, and we were both going, what on earth is going to happen? And of course, new company, there's just two of us, all this around furlough, the business interruption loans or whatever, that has completely gone out the window. I don't think we would ever have qualified for any of that. So we just fumbled through, but we won some customers. We did the classic transaction over to a bit of remote training, that sort of thing.
So that's good you adapted.
Yeah, you have to. Everyone had to, didn't they, in those circumstances? And we grew. Somehow we grew. Very little bits might be online. The shorter, sharper stuff, but the residential modules are obviously face-to-face, and the experiential learning. So we do a lot of experiential learning. People sometimes misinterpret that for team building. On our website, if we've got something like that, they'll go, oh, you do team building. Yes, of course we do team building, but that isn't about team building. That's an experiential learning activity. Those are all face-to-face, so we're back in the training room for that. Yeah. And that is... that's the part that we love, creating a learning environment where people have a go at something and they just behave. And then you talk about it, well, why did you do that? And why did you say that? And, it's helping people actually unlock their own inner voice and why they've done stuff.
Well, you guys did, you did quite well through COVID, considering like everything that was stacked against you. So it was, and I guess, what do you think was the main cause of that? Why did you guys do well over COVID?
Resilience, good customers, understanding customers, never give up, never die attitude, positivity, a relentless focus on trying to keep the costs down where you can. I mean, we didn't have a lot of costs at all, but Ian will be forensic with those sorts of things. He's very good at saying, let's cut those costs out, blah, blah, blah. As I say, we didn't really have a lot, but maximize your opportunities. That it's a bizarre environment because we're so new into that company. And guess what? We're faced with this devastating moment, that this global pandemic that is going to wipe out, literally going to wipe out companies because of the devastating effects of it. Do you know what? In one sense, Nishi, I think just reflecting on that period now, it's probably made us stronger. We had to support each other. You probably learn a lot about people in those times, those troubling times, and I think we learned a lot about each other. And that, if I was having a down day, he'd pick me up. If he was having a down day, I'd pick him up. My entire life had been sort of in the training and sort of training and recruitment. I'd done bits of assessment and that area of recruitment, of course. But that's right. But even then, it never made me think about going and getting another job. I am an optimist. I'm a positive person, and we were going to get through it. And we did virtual training, and we did it really, really well. And our customers said it was really good, and so we would have got through it. And if the pandemic had carried on, we'd have carried on. We'd have got through that as well. And we're so far through it now. I don't think it'll come back. He says that, touching the wood and whatever. But if it does, we'll carry on. We'll go for it. We will.
That makes a lot of sense.
We're as much as we're a face-to-face training company, I think COVID opened the doors to being more virtual, and we have got used to it. But if you want to bang on a serious perspective, if you want to bang for a buck in the professional training world, face-to-face still adds enormous value to that. Virtual will have its place.
And you know what? Even before COVID, there was a shift towards, I guess, online stuff. But then COVID overdid it, I think, in my opinion. Like, what I found post-COVID was that people were so sick of Zoom, so sick of Teams that actually it just ramped up the demand for actual face-to-face. So, yeah, and you know what, just getting out for a day, like, you know, it seemed like a luxury all over again. And I can imagine that. So maybe like it produced tough times during COVID, but it created even more demand after. So that's.
Do you know what the irony is? That COVID created a greater impact on humanity and the humanness and contact. You know, literally, you had to stand 2 meters away from each other. You couldn't, you know, put your hand out and shake someone's hand. So humanity and the effects of humanity were really impacted by that. And I think that a lot of our customers still really value a face-to-face. They don't want us to meet on Teams or Google. We will do it, or Zoom. We will do it. Of course we'll do it. But a lot of them want to see face-to-face. They love it. Because, you know, literally having a coffee together.
You know what? So you've already kind of touched on it. But
We could have done this over Zoom, but we didn't. We came into a room and we shook hands and...
Yeah, it's no, you're absolutely right. Like a lot of podcasts do happen over Zoom, and I watch them as well. But just the value in just being in the same room, the body language, it feels a lot more personal. And so in terms of like what I'd really like to understand, actually, I think you've kind of explained it in the past, but why do you guys get out of bed every morning? What do you love about what you do? What makes it?
What a question. Well, there's so many answers to that question, Nishi. I think for me and Ian, and we are completely aligned on this, we believe that people make the difference. That is it. Ultimately, when you really boil it and distill it all down, people make the biggest difference. You know, a strategic plan doesn't just fall off of a desk. Someone writes a strategic plan. They're motivated to write a strategic plan. Salespeople go out and sell. They are the ones that impart value. They're the ones that talk about product, service, etc. Leaders lead from the front. You know, leaders support their teams. It's always to do with people, and you know, you're an employer. It's people. So giving people the best possible training and development is really, really important. And I think that there is a lot of lazy training out in the world, if I'm honest, where I'm not every company, by the way. There are brilliant training companies out there, but you will get people that will sort of stand at the front. There's a PowerPoint presentation, and they're just talking at delegates. They're just talking at the people on that training course. And of course, that isn't the creation of a learning environment. That is just passing over knowledge, and you're kind of hoping that someone will pick something up and go and do something with it. So for us, that motivation to get into a training room and really learn and grow and develop and inspirational, another one of those words that came out, inspire someone to be a better version of themselves tomorrow than they are today. That's something for Competitive Edge. That's what really gets us out of bed in the morning. And, you know, neither Ian nor I want to be like a managing director of Competitive Edge, because we want to be in the training room, because that is what we enjoy so much. We love raising awareness and helping people recognize the responsibilities of their job and that they can actually be better than they thought they could be. And you know, that's why we do it. We just happen to do it in sales, and leaders are the biggest two areas for us. We're now branching out a lot more into early career, and then employability and stuff. But, you know, helping people to be the best versions of themselves. And okay, yeah, we get paid for doing it. But actually, when someone pops a note on LinkedIn or someone shakes your hand at the end of it and they go, do you know what, that's the best training course I've ever been on. You can't help but you know, it's a humbling experience, but actually it's an enjoyable moment when someone says, thank you for taking time to challenge me and help me grow and develop.
Well, you guys have won some pretty good awards recently, haven't you, or over the last few years? So what would you say the most, I mean, so it means people in the industry are recognising you. What's the most prestigious one, would you say?
We you know, there aren't that many awards, sadly, at the moment, Nishi, but we've been shortlisted for some. We did win Business of the Year. I had one previously around an L&D Practitioner of the Year. But we've been shortlisted for 3 last year. We've been shortlisted for 2 more this year, and we've won one this year. And actually, just today, I announced on LinkedIn that Louise and Vicky have been shortlisted for Team of the Year, which is just fabulous. And that's all to do with the work that they do with nothing to do with me and Ian. In fact, we probably get in the way.
Well, you know what? Yeah, like you guys are showing up a lot online at the moment, so I guess that's that's your team, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that your people are your competitive edge. You know, I bang on about it all the time. I know it's a bit of a pun, but they really are. And our team are our competitive edge. And you know, Louise and Vicky are brilliant. They are patient with us. They're helpful. The work that they do behind the scenes to help Ian and me be the best that we can be is phenomenal. I mean, literally phenomenal. And the encouragement, you know, it's fabulous from both of them.
Well, you know what? When you got a good core team like that, you can really use them to expand the team, I guess. And so it's good. Yeah, sometimes you just need a handful of really good people, and then that's the base of building an absolutely amazing larger business. And
trust. Trust is so important, and I, you know, the four people in that sense trust each other immensely, and I think that's really helpful because it allows us to have some of those awkward conversations that have to happen because we know actually we're all doing it for the right reason.
Yeah. So what's next for Competitive Edge?
So Ian and Louise have had a wonderful. They're currently sat enjoying themselves in the Maldives, which is a much needed break, and I hope they are having a wonderful time. What's next for Competitive Edge? Clearly there'll be more of the same. Of course there will be. We want to deliver more and more training, but we are looking at ways in which we can package up even more opportunities for smaller businesses as well. And that is something that's really close to my heart because I've worked and lived in a small business.
Do you work with many small businesses at the moment, or is it mainly?
No, mostly they're bigger businesses, and actually I refer to those as whales. They're massive whales, and when you land a whale on when you go fishing, when you land a whale, the whole boat starts to wobble, and we're all hands on deck. Those whales are brilliant companies, and they really invest their energy and time and effort. But actually, from a perspective of how can we really touch other opportunities and companies, it will be fishing in businesses that are smaller. So we're working on stuff like that to make that accessible, make our outstanding training accessible to smaller businesses.
So what do you think the main differences in working with small businesses are compared to working with the whales?
Challenges are very, very similar, and there are some different challenges. A difference, I guess, in that sense would be that when you've got an enormous business, they will have in-house stuff that they can put to it. So some of the companies we're working with, they will have an internal training and development manager, or they'll have an HR team that are pro the concept of L&D, and so they can be supportive for it. A smaller business, they won't have that. It will be an owner like you and I. It's an owner, manager of a business. You might have a director of a function. You might have an HR manager or an outsourced HR manager, but no one is really looking at all of the L&D. And so the challenge there is showing them that they can have really good training and development without the need to have this internal structure to support them. That's a massive challenge and a massive difference. But actually, if you think about a salesperson's job is to go out and to persuade and to win work, bring in work, persuade people to take those products and services. And it doesn't matter whether it's a big organization doing that or a small organization. And that person needs to be the very best that they can be. And they need to be able to demonstrate the value that the organization brings and the value that those products and services bring, not just talk about product all the time.
That makes a lot of sense. I guess maybe one of the things you probably got, if you work in small businesses, is helping them understand the importance of patience in the sales process as well. Because, we've got clients where I think they hire salespeople and they want results overnight, whereas larger businesses like the whales, they'll probably understand actually that, it probably takes at least 6 months for a business development manager to become effective. So maybe there's some expectation management needed there as well.
That's right. They'll have those systems and those processes set up. Of course they will do. Some smaller businesses do, as you know, Nishi, but the larger businesses do. But actually they've got a client base or a customer base which is quite wide stretching. And so in a larger business, the support element there can be quite quite good for someone in a sales role, because there are accounts that they can inherit. A smaller business, actually, you've got to go hunt. You've actually got to go and hunt there. So there are differences, there are changes, and
So hunting is about audacity and finding those new contacts, whereas I think what you're describing for the larger organizations, that's about nurturing, really, isn't it?
both sized organizations need both. They need to hunt, but they also to grow and bring in new work, but they need to farm in a really, really good way. I mean, those are very old-fashioned terms, as we know, but the mentality around good account management, funnily enough, good account management is actually hunting in that account for more work.
Upselling or reselling to the same customer.
Upselling, cross-selling, yeah, exactly right.
Is that a lot of this kind of stuff you cover in your training?
Absolutely. I mean, a good account manager shouldn't just be talking about the same old stuff. They should be looking at different ways in which they can grow that account. 100%. A good account manager should be having a really good quality conversation, a proactive quality conversation about increasing breadth of purchase, in share of wallet, whatever those phrases are that people use a lot of the time. So yeah, absolutely.
Well, so at the moment, a lot of the training you do, I guess you get people from an organisation and then you train them together. So, but it's usually like, do you mix organisations as part of that?
No. So that question you asked a few moments ago, what's next? What's going to happen for competitive edge? Some of those open programs and open courses are going to start to emerge more and more over the next couple of years.
So that's a lot more accessible for small businesses, because really they'll be doing bring one person at a time. So
correct. Because a small business might have two BDMs that want sales training. You can't let both of those two BDMs go at the same time. So one person will go on one cohort, one person will go on another cohort. But actually, training isn't just about the performance and productivity of that person there. It's also a way to retain key staff. So a lot of the reasons that some people leave organizations is because they're not getting great L&D. They're not getting training. And actually they crave it. They want it. More and more people, if they get good L&D, they want to stay in that organization because they're going to be invested in, they're going to grow, they're going to develop, they're going to be challenged. There's career opportunities that grow on the back of that. So great L&D can retain people.
Yeah, actually, I completely agree with that. Yeah, because people, it comes down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can pay people, but it's only going to get you so far.
Exactly.
After a point, they want to know that they're making a difference, they're part of a bigger picture, that they've got that fulfillment, and actually, more importantly, that they're building themselves as an asset. And that makes a lot of sense. And I think what you're kind of touching on now would be, if you've got lots of smaller businesses coming together in a cohort, then that's when you can start building a community, really, isn't it?
Completely. Absolutely. So,
and how do you think you're going to execute that or deliver a community?
That, the challenges around those, and there are organizations that have tried that. Many times those fail because it's just difficult to get lots. The minute you run an open program, if you sell one place, you've got to deliver it.
Yes.
You've got to commit to it. And so they fail sometimes because they can't get enough people onto it. But once you build that community, I mean, that is huge. I guess the downsides maybe to an open program is people are fearful that, their people are going on an open program and they might hear that their grass is greener at another company. Exactly. That is a fear sometimes, but
I guess then as part of your marketing and sales on it, you've really got to explain to the business owner, actually there's less risk of this, is more likely to get you to keep that member of staff rather than lose them.
On balance, it's more likely to retain them. Exactly right, because they're being invested in, and some of our development journeys are 12 months long, and you're retaining someone because they want to stay on that program.
Yeah, I've never understood the mentality business owners have of they want to not expose their staff to other businesses, because in the end of the day, those other businesses exist anyway. It's like you can't, even if you try and stop your staff learning about those other businesses, they're going to find out about them somewhere else.
They find about them daily. They're finding it out from their mates. They're finding it out, literally our mobile phones are throwing information at us daily. Facebook is telling us about stuff. LinkedIn is telling us about stuff. Instagram is telling us about stuff. Information overload. Hiding people from it because they're not going on an open training program is not going to protect your people from hearing about the wider world.
That makes a lot of sense. And actually, that's really exciting. I mean,
and by the way, putting them on that training program and showing them that actually it's a good place to be where you currently are.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They might find that the grass isn't greener by talking to some of their peers.
That's really good, and actually, I'm glad to hear that, because actually, you and Ian, you've got an amazing reputation. You're really passionate about what you do. So, I think small business owners in this day and age need every little bit of help they can get. So, yeah, but that's good that you're actually going down that route. Small businesses are the future big businesses, really. So, if you can get that right from an earlier age for that business, then you're just going to have much more success later on. So, that's really good. I guess we're coming to the end of the podcast. You've been so patient with all the technical issues with the cameras and stuff.
Hopefully they'll never know.
It's but you know what? No, I really do appreciate it. And I guess the final question I'll just ask you is, if you could give I always want to know, what advice would someone give to someone starting up? So if you could give yourself some advice from 3.5 years ago, yourself 3.5 years ago, some advice now, what would that be?
Does it have to be just one piece of advice, or
no?
Go for it. Go for it. Commit. Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Yeah. Write down what you want it to be. It doesn't necessarily have to be some sort of brilliant, glossy business plan brochure type thing. Write down what you want it to be. Surround yourself with people that want to encourage you, but will hold you to account. Tell your family, your partner, wife, husband, whatever, that you're going to go and do it. Don't just spring it on them. I didn't do that with Eloise, but you got to be careful that you don't do something like that.
I mean, that's what I did actually with my wife. I was like, I've just handed my notice. But anyway, I guess that there's other, yeah.
Well, you kind of want them on the journey with you. So it's
in hindsight, if I could give myself 9 years ago that advice, I would. But she was very supportive, so that's great.
Yeah. But actually, you know what? Going for it causes you to have to go for it. There's a quote that I heard when I was a kid, and it was one that my dad sort of made me listen to. Back in the day when you had cassette tapes, and you put them into and you press play, and not like these DVDs or podcasts or whatever that you get nowadays. Yeah. DVDs, they're even old fashioned. There was a quote from a guy called Earl Nightingale, and it was about Earl Nightingale is like the grandfather of motivational speaking and stuff like that. And in that particular radio broadcast that he did, which was probably in the 60s, and it was off the cuff, by the way. He did this off the cuff, but he talked about the definition of success, and he'd ask his people, how would you define success? And that definition that he came up with was, success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And I've remembered that. And he used to talk about how you plant, mindset. It was all about mindset, how you plant seeds in your mind. And what really resonated with me in that particular quote was the word progressive. Success is the progressive, ongoing realization. So it's starting to happen. The progressive realization of a worthy ideal. And actually, if you're going to go out and you're going to do something, think about what your worthy ideal is. How is that going to benefit other people? How's it going to benefit mankind? How's humankind? How's it going to benefit the wider society? Because if you go in and you think just about you, what am I going to get out of this? You may be successful, you may be. But actually, if you think about how it's going to benefit other people, I think what happens is that in turn creates a momentum where people like that and they want more of that. And for competitive edge, for me and Ian, I think we have got a worthy ideal. It helps people be a better version of themselves. Whatever that is, if it's a marketeer, if it's an accountant, if it's a solicitor, what is your worthy ideal? What does it look like? And success is the progressive realization of that. And if you can get that fixed in your mind, then that will motivate you to get out of bed on the difficult days. That'll get you, going and having those sales conversations. If you're not a salesperson, you don't want to do it. It will create within you, it will inspire within you and motivate within you that ongoing need and resilience to keep going, that purpose that you need to keep going, and your why. That would be my, if I was to sit down with someone and they were going, I don't know whether to go with, what is that worthy idea? What is the thing that's going to change other people's lives?
That's absolutely amazing. Chris, if people want to track you down and talk to you and get in touch, how would they do that?
The usual ways, isn't it? You're on a website, LinkedIn, profiles. They could phone you up, say, "Can I have his phone number?" And
We'll definitely include a link to your website in the description of this video.
Yeah.
So,
ironically, I'm actually quite easy to get hold of. I must be, because I get loads of phone calls from people trying to sell me stuff. So,
excellent. But
by the way, they're leads because they don't sell it very well.
yes, actually, that's a perfect example. You know what? Like, the people getting in touch with you and selling back to them, that would be the ideal scenario. Chris, thank you very much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone, you've been listening to the Unrelenting Drive podcast. I'll see you at the next episode.